All right. So, very delighted today to have a conversation with my brother, Andrew Fontana. Also, the first white man on our community conversations lineup. So, no big deal. Yeah. Andrew is my brother, and welcome. Thank you for being on this with me. Um, More important or differently important than being my kin. Um, Andrew's a therapist and a scholar, I would say, in your own right, and someone who we both like personally and kind of professionally had some parallel um, journeys around our own healing and then the kind of healing work that we want to do in our communities and in the world. And yeah, we were on a hike a couple of weeks ago and just yacked for like 5 hours. After which we were both like, damn, we should have gotten paid for that. That was some good stuff. So I just thought I'd see if you wanted to come and have a little more formal chat. And yeah, that's how this came about. So anything else you want to say by way of introducing yourself or your own work?
Yeah, I was thinking about that before we started, and I think talking about like offering bio stuff always feels kind of slippery to me. And I think it's just because where I'm coming from, I mean, from moment to moment, but from season to season, um, different things are raising their heads in terms of how I'm thinking about what's important about Andrew. So I think more, I think that will come out in our conversation,
Yeah.
more about how I want to like locate myself. But I will say, yeah, I'm a therapist. And I would say that that's a big part of my identity. And I think part of what we'll get into is some of what I'm learning in this season about how important work is to me, um, and maybe to the degree of I guess just to say that right now I'm starting a private practice, and getting this baby born has been humbling in ways I expected, but I'm only really knowing as I'm living into them. So let's I think we'll just start, and then more will come.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so do you want to maybe start with, so folks we know at this point, but I introduced like our list of core values to our conversation partners, and they can choose one that resonates for them or that aligns with the work that they're doing, maybe in a similar or a different way than the way that we're interpreting that for at the sanctuary. But so do you want to share, like, was there a word or a theme that from that list of values that spoke to you or that's teaching you in this season?
Yeah, absolutely. Lightness, I would say, is the word that I've been sitting with. And I think it's interesting that it comes in this season because again, as I briefly touched on, I'm going through a transition period, coming out of a season of working a lot. I was working in community mental health clinics during the pandemic, and work was really how not only I coped, I think there was some of that, but just how it gave me purpose during that time. And yeah, so it was interesting to hear the word lightness, because right now there's sort of a unbearable lightness in having a lot of the responsibilities, the people I've been working with, a lot of that has narrowed, and I'm only working a little bit right now. And so yeah, hearing that as the topic was like, oh, like this is kind of the thing I feel least qualified to talk about right now, but I'm interested to talk about it because of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing that, or kind of sensing that in what you're describing as like lightness that comes from having a lot of space in your life right now, right? Or is that what you're saying? Like you don't have like the anchors that fill like the average day with 8 hours of work outside the home or whatever, and I think lightness, as I've been imagining it as a value for the sanctuary, is like, well, what I have in our document about it is like seeking respite and buoyancy through moments of laughter, upliftment, frivolity. And that is really hard to do in like a workaholic, productivity driven, value assigning culture. I don't know if this was what you were kind of alluding to in your introduction. You were saying how much your work is a part of your identity, and your phrase like the unbearable lightness of this period of time where work is not the grounding routine. And you're having to, you're having to navigate the lightness, or kind of incorporate that in a way that maybe you said you anticipated, but maybe we can't know what it actually feels like until we are in it. So yeah, I mean, I'm hearing you kind of take that word in the like, it wasn't really how I had imagined it, but I can see how like we're so underskilled in being with unstructured time, or being in the more buoyant places that aren't just dissociative. So yeah, anything else you want to say about that, or like how are you navigating that? What is helping you to navigate that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot that I want to say about it.
Yeah, go for it.
And to start, like I was hiking this weekend. I was backpacking, and I had this moment on the side of this ridge, and it was just beauty. The moment was beauty, and I'm up on this ridge with my dog, Zena, and a few close friends. And bear in mind, everything in me did not want to go on this trip because, and I hope my friends don't hear this, but there's a certain, and I couldn't name it until this moment. And so, but I'll just say that I was like, I don't want to go. I don't want to go to the woods. And there was a part of me that knows this voice and is familiar with the way sort of my mind fights going to the wilderness. And I think you can relate to knowing, like, because it's a place of not being productive. It's a place of um, not being able to hide from maybe grief. Um, it's also a place where also maybe we can avoid beauty. And in this moment, on this ridge, looking down onto this lake about a mile below and then into the Cascades, I felt this sense of, wow, I've been living like I don't deserve beauty.
Mm,
Um, and knowing in that moment it's been connected to, because I haven't been working like I was.
mhm,
And
mhm, mhm, mhm.
um, yeah, and so in that, and then in that moment I knew, like, no, I will let the mountains hold me.
Mm,
um
mhm, mm.
but that's, yeah, even returning to the city, it's a hard um moment to hold on to.
Mhm.
But I think what I've been holding about, and thinking about our conversation about lightness, is kind of rewinding, and getting maybe back to, like, locating Andrew. And there's, I think when I started the work of becoming a therapist, of going to school, um, I was I was able to begin to describe, which I had known for a long time, but be able to describe in words that, like, the depth part came easy to me. Like, when it came to connecting with other people, I felt comfortable going deep first and foremost. That sort of connecting is what let me know that we were connected. And I struggled with the shallow, as I sort of come to name it, and valuing, for instance, small talk, or levity, and feeling like unless I could connect in a deep way, that was the only authentic way to connect.
Mhm.
And I think my training as a therapist has really showed me how do I want to say this? I guess it just showed me I need both. Um, and it's been helpful. I found it orienting in my life to have my work as a therapist, because I feel like I get that need to go deep met a lot, maybe too much at times. But there's a lot of that happens in my work life. And then when I leave, I get to not be a therapist. And that's so good.
Mhm.
And when I'm with my friends, with my family, I am not that. And there have been so many moments, like, on the other side of training, where someone says something to me out in the world, and I'll just be like, that sucks. And I will not ask more. And I will, and just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I mean, that phrase has just done a lot for me in terms of being able to move between, and we could say, like, light and maybe shadow, or depth and shallowness. And that shallowness isn't a pejorative. It's a great place too. Yeah, the water's one there.
Yeah. I mean, this is something we've visited several times, I think, together, because even just navigating our own relationship, and um, I think we've phrased it at some point of, like, the belief that depth equals closeness. And yeah, I feel like I do relate and have had to learn the skills and the pieces of like healthy nervous system regulation that, I mean, and that's kind of like an overly formal way to say it, but just like the ways that all the little touch points build a, a secure base, you know, and build a web of like better nervous system regulation across the board. And the image that was coming to mind as you were talking was about like imagining the kind of micro climate of the forest floor, and how a tree will have, you know, a taproot or some of the bigger, deeper roots. And then there's also like a million little mycelial threads that are like transmitting data and nutrients all the time, and which might be the social equivalent of like talking about the weather or something, which at times has felt like, oh, this is just like, you know, no one's being authentic, you're not like, what's really going on, you know. And yeah, which I think I have also had to learn as like, well, that's part of the connective tissue that's that can be very nourishing as a part of the whole, you know. I think
Yes.
yeah, so
Like, well, I think it brings to mind and sort of parallel between what I experience personally, what I experience like in my work, which it doesn't take much to humanize me. Like I was thinking about this even when I'm driving, and we all, I mean, I think most of us, you know, being unexpectedly caught in traffic might be like the sixth circle of hell. I mean, I think there's one further below, um, but the experience, and I've noticed this recently, of I think especially during the pandemic when human interaction was so limited, of someone waiting and letting me in, kind of like in just a generous, yeah, I see you, go for it. And the way that can shift my whole day around, or I mean, or the wave in a car where, like, you know, someone does something for you and you wave and they wave back. The way that that small interaction can just shift my whole sort of being around, from like, I'm trying to look out for myself in this world of separate entities all looking out for themselves, to yeah, my impulse to like do that for the next person is just so much higher. Or a simple interaction with a stranger on the street, how much that can shift sort of how much I'm carrying my aloneness or my sense of isolation. And I think that's really true in the work I do with people, where at a certain point, the trauma, the sky's the limit. Like it can go on forever. But I think why therapy works is because a consistent amount of small goodness, it changes people. And having knowing that I will get that goodness again, that changes people. And so I think, like, I hold this tension a lot between how much the stories people are bringing in, how much trauma, how much suffering with this experience in my own life, and the people I work with life, but a small amount of good makes a huge difference.
Yeah, but that's evoking for me is like, I've been recently introducing what I'm calling pleasure practice in some of the groups I run, and it's what's there's many funny things about that to me. The first is like many people's, even my own immediate association is like orgasm, or like to the degree of highest intensity, and then typically the thing I will introduce is something like letting yourself, like just doing a full cycle of sighs, like ah, like just like feeling a full satisfaction, that of that like long breath out with sound, and that's it, that's all we're gonna do, and or like a simple sensory noticing, like finding an object in your room that has like a, a like soft or weightedness, or it's cool to the touch, and it just feels like when you pay attention to it, it feels like there's a real sweet, pleasant quality to it, but it's subtle. It's not like eating chocolate cake or having an orgasm. It's just like a very simple, I'm relating it to like like those little offerings of goodness, or however you described it, and I think this is also different from how maybe how I have imagined the healing process, or even learning process of like focus, which can tend towards fixation on the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been much more through like some of the somatic work that, and like understanding nervous system processes, that I've had more kind of an imagination for like, well, you can only sustain focus on a problem for so long. Like a body can't sustain that. A system can't sustain that, if we're thinking of like wider cultural bodies like families or communities. At the same time, it can't sustain no attention
Mm-hmm.
to the source of dis-ease. And so, yeah, I think in my life, it's like it has required periods of what I can now reflect on are like fixation on the problem, with a slow, like gradual moving back out into like a wider, having a wider scope for, yeah, that's kind of troubling. And I can be aware of that without ignoring or dissociating from it, and also be aware that the sun is out today, and I like the shoes I'm wearing, or whatever, I like the feel of my feet on the ground. And yeah, that's kind of where that took me.
It brings to mind for me when like a person came recently and struggling with intimacy, with sex, and had a particular problem that they wanted to work on, and asked me how do we work on that. Great question. And I said, well, when we will talk about sex, but we're really going to expand it to talk about what do you want. And sex can be held by that question, what do you want? But they're not the same. And I think, especially when I'm often working from one of the categories I'm often working from is the lens of shame. People come in with a lot of clarity about what's wrong with them, and what needs to be fixed in order for them to, and it could be a variety of things like, but for life to start maybe. And the question that is much harder for people to answer is, what do I want? And if all we do is ask that to the point where a person can begin to say, I don't even know what I want. That is just, that is such a, there's so much promise.
Yeah.
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh yeah, just that, a lot of potential in that place. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and that in itself is like, can I imagine require clearing so much shame just to allow that my desire might have something, might be an orienting compass that is worth listening to, instead of just that like untamable beast inside, or whatever the narrative is.
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, it's radical on so many levels, politically, economically, to think that I could trust what I want. But when I think about it too, I was thinking about this today. I'm glad we came here, because I was thinking about it from an attachment lens, which is also often what I'm thinking about. And if we think about a child and a parent from an attachment lens, often a child can experience what they want as a barrier or a severing of a sense of connection to the parent.
Okay, yeah.
So
in the sense of like expressing a desire or a need, which maybe is an important distinction, and getting shut down, or it not being met without context or some kind of bridge building or something, or what do you mean?
Yeah, all of that.
Okay.
So like when I think about working with people who have chronic shame, shame is so prevalent. It is the most common experience for them throughout their day, is this consistent sense of asking themselves, what's wrong with me in all that I do? And within that feeling of chronic shame, the impulse, what shame, and it's funny, even as we begin to talk about shame, which is true of when we work with shame, like my thinking brain starts to shut down. The instinct is to move towards maintaining some semblance of connection, and versus getting to know or staying present to desire, what I want. And for children, and thinking about I'm sort of losing my train of thought here.
Well, I was just wondering if something was there, like, we need to pause for a second, or just like, I don't know, is there a different sort of sensing that you're doing or want to do?
Well, I mean, I guess I could just say that I have to work with a lot of the shame that comes up around not working a lot right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, which kind of brings us full circle. Yeah. one thing that has been lingering for me as we've been talking has been just like the memory of you as my brother, and like how, I mean, I am a pretty easy to laugh person in general, but like you pretty much could fucking say anything and I would laugh. I laugh. And yeah, I feel like in my life you've always been, which I don't know, maybe you have felt sort of like closed in a kind of role in that way, I'm not sure, but I do feel like you do express the lightness of being, even if it isn't always doesn't always feel present to you.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it's reminding me, like when folks have reflected that back to me, like I remember this was just a couple years ago, I had a colleague in school say, every time I see you, it just brings a smile to my face. You're just so fun. And I was like, that is not the image that I had of myself. Like I have had chronic depression. I'm like always pointing out what's wrong with the world. Like I don't experience myself as fun. And it really opened something up for me to have this person reflect that, and for me to kind of try that on, like, am I fun? Am I fun to myself? and I feel like I'm more and more able to actually experience myself that way, like, and like kind of enjoy the joy that I think others do feel from me at times, and or to enjoy the lightness that I have experienced others like reflecting back about me. And I feel like that's, I mean, I could reflect that to you, just like we laugh so much, you know. Like I still have memories of some of your one-liners over there. It's just like so, anyway, that's just something it makes sense to me that you've chosen this theme, and it also is like complex, that you wrestle with it.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah.
And that we could be in moments of our life just so hidden from ourselves. And
totally.
When we are in East of Eden, he says, like, during the 7 years of rain and good weather, they forgot all about, the 7 years of drought and famine. And I think about that as just, when we're in these operating from these different places. I mean, that's so true. I can think of so many like songs that I would sing to you guys that I would rewrite the words to. And
yeah. Well, I'm tracking the time. Maybe we can close with, like, is there something in your personal practice that has been fruitful for you that you want to share with folks, or something by way of offering to anyone listening, like a way to practice or be with this theme, or anything else that has been giving you life?
I think in this time, I've been trying to be open to a new way of motivating, and I think it connects because, and I think the practice, I mean, it sounds so simple as to almost be dismissed, but it's really looking at each day in my week and saying, what am I looking forward to in this day? And usually it's really small. Like through the pandemic, I had the practice of just getting a donut. Like I had one day every week where I got a donut.
It's donut day.
Donut day. Don't blow donut day. And And that's still a pretty orienting practice for me. Again, just back to the way a small amount of goodness can shift things. And there's just so much that I have to get done, or that people have to do to live. And there's a lot that maybe we could do about that, but in this moment, in this week, in this month, there's not a lot maybe that can be done about that mountain. But yeah, finding that little bit of goodness, and putting that in each day as a way to move into them.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of one of my teachers who puts out cute animal videos on their on their social media. Like, did I send you the little armadillo?
Yeah, you sent me the armadillo. Yeah, it destroyed me. It was so good.
It is. I go back to it and I just laugh and cry at the same. It's so sweet. I'll post it in the video notes. Yeah, thanks for that. Cool. Well, thanks so much, Andrew, for taking the time to talk and share, and just be in the process together. So really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kate. Thanks for creating the space. Really, really grateful to be here.
Yeah, awesome.